When space exploration isn't just about reaching the next planet or moon, picture a future where humanity's reach extends beyond our solar system, far beyond. Now, we're standing at the doorstep of that future. The year is 2250 and we're preparing to make history. So, how did we get here? It's easy to think space exploration started with the moon landing or the Mars rovers, but in reality, it's a journey that began long before we even sent the first astronaut into orbit. Our fascination with the stars has been around for centuries. Ancient civilizations looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what lay beyond. But it wasn't until the mid-20th century that we began taking those dreams seriously. Fast forward a few decades and the early days of space travel were full of challenges, breakthroughs, and a lot of ambition. The first rockets, the space race between nations, and the birth of NASA, they were all stepping stones. But despite our successes, our imaginations were always bigger than our technology. Going to the moon? Sure. Mars? Definitely. But what about the stars? What about other galaxies? That's where the dream of intergalactic travel starts to take shape. By the mid-21st century, humanity had already made incredible advances in space tech. AI, quantum computing, and new propulsion systems made the impossible feel within reach. Yet even with these technological leaps, the question remained. Could we really travel to another galaxy? And then, around the year 2150, something changed. A small group of forward-thinking scientists and engineers from around the world came together to pitch what many thought was a completely insane idea, a mission to another galaxy. Not just a flyby, not just a probe, but a full-scale manned mission. A journey that would take decades, maybe even centuries. But this wasn't just about proving a point. No, this was about the survival of humanity. Earth was facing massive challenges: overpopulation, climate change, and dwindling resources. The idea of intergalactic travel wasn't just a dream, it was a way to secure the future of the human race. The goal wasn't just exploration, it was survival. It was ensuring that humanity didn't have to depend on one single planet for its existence. And that's what made this mission so groundbreaking. This wasn't about putting a flag on a new planet. It was about finding humanity's place in a universe that was bigger, far bigger, than anything we could ever imagine. But before we dive deeper into the mission itself, let's talk about the bigger picture. How did we get here? What were the first steps toward making intergalactic travel even possible? Well, it all starts with the breakthroughs in technology and space science. And trust me, it wasn't easy. So now, let's rewind a little and take a look at how all of this came together. You see, the mission we're talking about didn't just appear overnight. It wasn't as simple as deciding one day, hey, let's build a spaceship and head to another galaxy. No, this was a decades-long effort that started with the groundwork laid by people with a big vision. And a big question: how do you even begin to plan something as insane as intergalactic travel? Let's start with the core technology. To go beyond our solar system, we needed something far more advanced than the rockets we were used to. Traditional propulsion systems like chemical rockets just couldn't get us there fast enough. A trip to another galaxy would take tens of thousands of years using those. So scientists began looking at far-fetched ideas that, years ago, we'd only seen in science fiction. One of the first breakthroughs came from a team of physicists who developed something called the warp drive. Now, before you start imagining Star Trek, let's break it down. A warp drive, in theory, could bend space-time itself. It wouldn't move the spaceship through space in the traditional sense. Instead, it would create a bubble around the ship, contracting space in front and expanding it behind. This allowed the ship to effectively travel faster than light without breaking the laws of physics. But warp drives aren't easy. They need massive amounts of energy, way more than we could even produce at the time. But here's where things start getting interesting. Around 2225, a breakthrough in energy generation made the impossible seem possible. Scientists figured out how to harness antimatter, the substance that could provide an almost infinite energy source. Antimatter reactions, once too dangerous to even think about, were now being controlled and used to power the spaceship engines. Then, there was the matter of life support. Remember, this isn't just a short trip to Mars. This is an intergalactic mission, which meant the crew would be in space for decades, even centuries. They couldn't rely on Earth for supplies. The solution? Closed-loop systems. These self-sustaining habitats would recycle air, water, and waste, and even grow food on board. Imagine living in a space station where everything you need to survive is made from what you already have. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it was about to become reality. And it wasn't just about the technology, it was also about the human side of things. How do you prepare a group of people for a journey that will last for generations? There were so many unknowns, psychologically, emotionally, and even physically. Space isn't just a place where people go to explore, it's a harsh, unforgiving environment, and spending decades in it could have a major impact on the human body. Astronauts would need to endure isolation, changes in gravity, radiation, and the psychological strain of being so far from home. So, the mission's planners enlisted top psychologists and doctors to design extensive training programs, everything from simulations of deep space to mental conditioning for long-term survival. They wanted to make sure the crew didn't just survive, they'd need to thrive in ways that humans had never been asked to before. And it wasn't just about preparing the crew, it was about preparing the world. You see, for a mission like this to work, it needed more than just brilliant scientists. It needed global cooperation. The space agencies of Earth came together, pooling resources, knowledge, and expertise. Nations that had once been competitors now worked side by side, sharing technology, funding, and even cultural insights. This wasn't just a mission for one country, it was a mission for all of humanity. Alright, now that we have a solid understanding of how the tech and the people came together, let's talk about what it would actually be like to step aboard this intergalactic spaceship. This is where the mission starts to get really wild. The crew wasn't just signing up for a long trip, they were signing up for a new life in a new reality, on a vessel that was a city in space. First, let's picture the ship itself. It wasn't a sleek, small vessel like the ones we see in movies. No, this thing was massive. Think of a space station that could fit thousands of people, but with the speed and power to leave the Milky Way behind. It was built to be a self-sustaining ecosystem, complete with artificial gravity, food production, and even areas for recreation. The goal was to make the crew feel at home, even though they'd be millions of light years from Earth. Inside the ship, the crew lived in designated zones. There were residential areas, much like apartments, where people could get some privacy. After all, you're spending decades with these people. There were research labs where the scientists could work on experiments, and farming zones where crops would be grown in artificial fields. And then, of course, there were the observation decks. Because even if you're in space for generations, you'll still want to gaze out at the stars and reflect on just how far you've come. Life aboard the ship was far from routine. Sure, there were daily tasks like tending to crops, maintaining the engines, or running experiments, but the real challenge was in the human aspect of it all. Think about it, there's no getting off the ship for a break. You can't just pop over to the local coffee shop for some human interaction or take a weekend trip to the mountains. You're surrounded by the same group of people, day in and day out for decades. And when I say decades, I mean decades. The mission wasn't just a few years long, it was going to take the crew an estimated 60 years to reach the nearest galaxy, and that was if everything went perfectly. But we know nothing in space ever goes perfectly, right? So they prepared for delays, for complications, for emergencies. If anything went wrong with the ship's systems, or if something unexpected happened, the crew needed to be ready to handle it. Now let's think about the personal side of things. Imagine being part of a mission where you know you're never going to see Earth again. No family, no friends, no home. It's a huge emotional strain, but even more than that, there's the mental toll. Humans aren't built to be isolated for such long periods, especially in a confined space. So psychologists had to design unique training programs to help the crew cope with loneliness, stress, and even the fear of never returning. They did everything from group therapy sessions to one-on-one counseling, making sure that the crew members felt supported by each other. But it wasn't all about isolation and survival. There was still the excitement of discovery. Every day, the crew was working towards something bigger than themselves. They were making history. They were stepping into the unknown, and while they had the weight of the world on their shoulders, they also had the chance to be a part of something that could change humanity forever. Now the crew had to be a special kind of person. Think about it. Would you want to leave everything you know, everything you love, behind? Some crew members were born for this kind of adventure, ready to take on the unknown, while others were more reluctant. But each person was chosen because they brought something unique to the mission. Whether it was their expertise in physics, their ability to maintain the ship's systems, or their understanding of alien cultures in case they encountered extraterrestrial life. It's hard to imagine what it would feel like to step into the shoes of those astronauts, knowing that every step you take is one closer to leaving the only world you've ever known. But they weren't just thinking about themselves, they were thinking about the future of humanity. They knew that this mission wasn't just about them, it was about their children, their grandchildren, and generations beyond. They were planting the seeds for a future that no one alive today would see, but one that could ensure our survival as a species. Now we've covered the tech, the preparation, and the crew. So let's get into one of the most exciting parts. Launch day. Picture this. The year is 2250, the ship is ready, and the crew is about to embark on the most ambitious journey humanity has ever attempted. The countdown begins, and for everyone involved, this is the moment they've been waiting for. But there's so much more going on behind the scenes than just a simple countdown. It's not just the crew who are feeling the weight of the mission, it's the entire planet. Imagine the entire world tuned in, watching as the first intergalactic mission prepares to leave Earth's atmosphere. The news is everywhere. People are gathering in front of screens from the smallest villages to the largest cities, everyone holding their breath, waiting for this monumental moment to unfold. It's a celebration of human achievement, a moment that unites every nation, every culture in the shared excitement of what's about to happen. But for the crew, it's a mixture of nerves and excitement. This is it. No turning back. The training, the sacrifices, the years of preparation, all of it has led to this point. The emotions are running high. For some, it's the dream they've been working toward for years. For others, it's a daunting reality setting in that they're about to leave everything behind. Friends, family, the comforts of Earth, it all fades away as the ship begins to power up. And let's not forget about the technical side of things. This launch isn't like any other. The spacecraft, with its warp drive, antimatter reactors, and closed-loop systems, is more complicated than anything Earth has ever seen. Engineers are monitoring every system, every component, making sure everything is functioning perfectly. There are no second chances here. One mistake, one tiny malfunction could doom the mission. The pressure on the control rooms back on Earth is intense. But the mission control team has done this countless times in simulations. They're as ready as they can be. As the final seconds of the countdown tick down, there's a stillness in the air. And then, the engines fire. The ground shakes. The massive spacecraft, like a colossus, lifts off the Earth's surface. The roar of the engines is deafening, but it's the feeling of human history being made that dominates the moment. The whole world is watching as the ship ascends, climbing higher and higher, leaving the planet that's been humanity's cradle for millions of years. But as the ship exits Earth's atmosphere and begins its journey into deep space, there's an eerie silence. For the crew, it's the first time in their lives they're experiencing true weightlessness. Everything they've known, gravity, time, space, suddenly feels different. Inside the ship, it's a mixture of awe and adjustment. This isn't just about leaving Earth, it's about entering an entirely new realm. The ship isn't just a vehicle, it's their home, their world, their lifeline to everything they know. And as the mission progresses, something else becomes clear. Space is vast, there's a loneliness that comes with it, an overwhelming sense of just how small you are in the grand scale of the universe. The crew can no longer look down and see the Earth, the thing that grounded them. There's only the endless black of space stretching out in front of them. But this isolation, this emptiness, is a reminder of why they're doing this. They are part of something much bigger than themselves. They are paving the way for future generations who will follow, long after they've gone. Now, even though the ship is moving at incredible speeds, it still feels like the journey has just begun. As they head toward the edge of our solar system, the first few months are all about getting used to life in deep space. The crew settles into their routines. There are moments of beauty, watching distant stars twinkle, or the quiet of space, so vast and still. But there are also moments of fear. What if something goes wrong? What if they encounter an unknown danger? The unknown is always just around the corner in space. Every day is a challenge, but with each passing day they're getting closer. Closer to their destination. Closer to the edge of the Milky Way. Closer to a future they've only dreamed about. And despite all the struggles, despite the isolation, there's something undeniable about the journey. They are pioneers. They are humanity's first intergalactic travelers, making history in ways no one has ever imagined. As the ship continues its journey, now deep in the heart of space, the crew's daily life begins to settle into a rhythm. But this isn't the kind of routine you might expect. Out here, there are no distractions, no cities to visit, no family to check in on, no weekend trips to take. Every single day is spent in this one place with only the stars outside to keep you company. And even though they're headed toward the unknown, there's a sense of calm that takes over. This is their reality now and they'll have to make it work. The challenges, though, are far from over. Space is full of unknowns, and the farther they travel, the more unpredictable things become. For instance, there's the issue of radiation. Earth's atmosphere and magnetic field shield us from most of the harmful radiation in space, but out here, beyond our protective bubble, things get dicey. The crew has to constantly monitor the ship's shields and radiation levels. One small failure could lead to dangerous exposure, something they couldn't risk. The technology aboard the ship is top of the line, designed to protect them from these dangers. But even the most advanced systems can fail. And with each failure, there's a growing sense of urgency. They can't afford to make mistakes. The crew knows that every action they take can have massive consequences. They can't rely on Earth anymore. Their survival depends entirely on their ability to keep things running smoothly. Then there's the psychological toll. The initial excitement of launch day fades away quickly as the crew faces the reality of their situation. Months turn into years, and the isolation becomes more intense. In the early stages of the mission, there were regular video calls with loved ones. But now, after years of travel, even those connections have faded. The crew members have learned to adapt, but there are still moments of loneliness, homesickness, and the deep, aching desire to hear a familiar voice. But they push through. After all, they're here for a reason. They have a mission, and it's bigger than any of them. Every discovery, every milestone they hit along the way is part of a larger purpose. This mission isn't just about reaching the next star system, it's about ensuring that humanity has a future. And speaking of discoveries, let's talk about those. As they journey deeper into space, the crew begins to see things no one on Earth has ever seen. New types of stars, strange cosmic phenomena, and anomalies that no one could explain. Some of these discoveries are mind-boggling. There are signals from distant stars that seem almost intentional. Could they be from alien civilizations, or are they just natural cosmic events we don't yet understand? One of the most remarkable moments happens when the crew picks up a signal coming from a nearby system. It's a series of repeating pulses, a pattern that doesn't seem natural. Could this be the breakthrough humanity's been waiting for? The possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence hanging in the air like a tantalizing mystery. But they can't rush to conclusions. They need to analyze the data, run simulations, and ensure they're not jumping to a wild assumption. Still, it's hard to ignore the possibility that they might be the first humans to discover life beyond Earth. Of course, not every discovery is a mystery. Some are simply awe-inspiring. They reach a point where they encounter a cluster of stars in a neighboring galaxy. The sight is breathtaking. A sea of light so beautiful and vast it takes their breath away. The crew is in awe. They can't help but wonder what lies within those stars, what kind of worlds, what kind of life could exist there. Every star, every planet, every asteroid they pass is a reminder of just how much we don't know. Space is full of answers waiting to be uncovered. In moments like these, the crew remembers why they're here. Yes, they're isolated. Yes, it's hard, but they're doing something no one on Earth has ever done. They are exploring the unknown, charting the future for generations to come. And with each new discovery, they inch closer to their goal, to reach the other side of the galaxy and bring back knowledge that could change everything we know about the universe. But while the discoveries are amazing, there's a darker side to all of this. The isolation, the uncertainty, and the pressure to keep things running smoothly all weigh heavily on the crew. They're far from Earth, with no clear idea of what's ahead of them. Yes, the promise of discovery drives them, but the fear of the unknown is always lurking in the background. By now, the crew has been in space for years. The novelty of intergalactic travel is starting to wear off, and the day-to-day struggles of life aboard a ship far from Earth have begun to set in. Every small issue feels magnified when you're light years away from home. A malfunction in the power system, a minor leak in one of the HAB zones. Back on Earth, these might seem like little problems, but in the void of space, they're emergencies. The first real challenge comes when the ship encounters a massive asteroid field. These aren't just a few floating rocks, they're dense, scattered across the ship's path. The crew is forced to engage in a maneuver that's never been done before. They need to use the ship's advanced navigation systems and warp drive to avoid collision. It's a delicate balance of technology and skill, and one miscalculation could mean disaster. The crew works together, each person in their role, executing their tasks with precision. They pull it off, just barely, but the incident serves as a reminder of how dangerous the journey is. And this is where things start to feel even more real for the crew. They've already been isolated for years, they've missed family milestones, and the weight of the mission continues to grow. But it's not just about the big moments of crisis, it's the small moments that really hit home. Over time, the crew starts to lose track of days, months, even years. Time becomes an abstract concept. It doesn't matter if it's day or night anymore. The stars outside are constant, and so is the isolation, but the team keeps pushing forward. One of the most incredible things about the mission is how the crew begins to form new bonds with one another. At first they were strangers, but now they're a family of sorts, united by this massive shared purpose. They work together, they eat together, they train together, and they even start to create little traditions to help them cope with the isolation. Birthdays are celebrated, anniversaries are marked, and the crew members find ways to stay connected. It's a way to remind themselves that even though they're far from Earth, they're not alone. They've learned to make the best of their situation, even though it's anything but easy. They find moments of joy in the smallest things, a new scientific discovery, a clear day to observe distant stars, a successful repair. The mission, though grueling, is still one of hope and progress. Each milestone they hit is a victory, not just for them, but for all of humanity. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Then, something unexpected happens. One of the crew members begins experiencing strange health symptoms. At first it seems like just stress, maybe a little too much time spent in the artificial gravity chambers. But it quickly becomes clear that something's wrong. The crew doctor runs tests, but the results are baffling. There's no clear diagnosis. It's not just one person, others start showing signs of fatigue, dizziness, and headaches. It's as if their bodies are reacting to something in space that no one anticipated. As the symptoms spread, the crew begins to panic. They're millions of light years from Earth, and now they're facing an unknown health crisis. The ship's medical team works around the clock to find answers, but the situation is growing more dire. It's another reminder of the risks of space exploration. No matter how advanced the technology, there will always be things that can go wrong. There will always be dangers that we can't predict, no matter how much we plan. But in the face of this crisis, the crew shows incredible resilience. They work together, they support each other, and they rely on the tools and knowledge they've spent years training for. They continue to monitor each other's health and adjust the ship's systems to try and find the source of the issue. In the end, they discover that the problem isn't a disease or a virus, it's a side effect of prolonged exposure to deep space. The isolation, the lack of natural sunlight, and the constant radiation exposure are starting to affect their bodies in ways no one could have predicted. This crisis tests the crew's ability to adapt. They create new systems to mitigate the problem, adjusting their environment to better simulate conditions on Earth. They install new artificial lighting systems, adjust the ship's radiation shields, and begin a strict regimen of exercise and rest to help their bodies recover. It's a tough road ahead, but this is what they've trained for. They've adjusted to the physical challenges of space, but now it's the mental strain that starts to take center stage. It's easy to forget, but spending decades in the void of space, separated from everything you've ever known, can wear down even the toughest individuals. One of the most profound shifts begins to take place within the crew's sense of time. The initial days, weeks, and even months of the mission felt like a countdown to something big, something grand. But now years have passed, and the days blur into one another. The crew members no longer track the passing months as they once did. The idea of Earth, even the idea of time itself, begins to fade into the background. For some, this is liberating, a break from the constraints of the world they once knew. For others, it's a haunting reminder of how far away they really are. The ship has become both their home and their prison. The walls, once a symbol of cutting-edge technology and hope, now feel like an inescapable cage. The routines are comforting in their familiarity, but they also serve to reinforce the isolation. There's nowhere to go, no place to escape to. They've adapted, but at a cost. They are so far away from everything they once loved, it's hard to remember what it was like to be on Earth at all. And yet, even in this isolation, there are moments that reignite the crew's sense of purpose. A new discovery, a breakthrough in their research, or simply the view of a far-off galaxy as they pass it by. These moments remind them that this mission is bigger than any one of them. They are pioneers, and though they may not be able to see it, they are laying the groundwork for future generations to follow. But it's not all about the science. As the years stretch on, the crew begins to realize that they've forged bonds that go beyond professional relationships. They've become family. There are moments when they laugh together, when they share stories of Earth, when they tell jokes to get through the long shifts. There are moments of sadness too. People fall ill, or sometimes one crew member has to say goodbye to the others. It's not easy, but it's a part of life on the ship. There's one moment in particular that stands out. A celebration. It's the anniversary of their departure from Earth, and although it's just another day in space, the crew decides to hold a small party in the observation deck. They share stories, reminisce about Earth, and laugh in a way that feels healing. There's a sense of unity, of togetherness, and for that brief moment, they are reminded that they're not just surviving, they are living. Still, there are constant challenges. Even though the ship is designed to be self-sustaining, there are unforeseen issues. A critical component of the ship's engine begins to fail, and they're forced to go into deep repairs, something they hadn't expected to do on such a massive scale. This isn't just a quick fix, it's a dangerous procedure that could take weeks, maybe even months, to complete. The crew, now seasoned and accustomed to dealing with the unexpected, jumps into action. The repairs require precision and expertise. It's a team effort, everyone working together to ensure the ship stays functional. In the middle of all this, the crew's resourcefulness shines. They use their collective skills to find solutions, to innovate, and to ensure the safety of the entire crew. It's another reminder that while space may be vast and full of dangers, it's the crew's ability to adapt and work together that keeps them alive. And of course, there are the little things. The things that make this long journey bearable. They've set up a small recreation area on board, complete with books, movies, games, and even a small gym. It's a place to unwind, to forget the stresses of the mission, if only for a few hours. For the crew, these small comforts are what keep them grounded. They create traditions, movie nights, fitness challenges, or even reading a new book together. It's these tiny rituals that remind them they're still human, still connected, despite the vastness of space. But there's always that looming question. What happens when we get there? What happens when they finally reach their destination? The crew can't help but wonder what they'll find when they arrive. Will they discover a new world? Will they encounter something beyond their wildest imaginations? Or will they face a whole new set of challenges? The unknown is always in the back of their minds, even as they push forward day by day. The long journey, the constant maintenance, the challenges, they've all become a part of life. But even so, the crew knows they're getting closer to their goal. With every passing day, they're one step closer to unveiling the mysteries of the universe, and that's what keeps them going. The belief that, despite everything, they are making a difference. They are doing something no one has ever done before. As the mission nears its climax, the excitement builds. The crew has endured years of isolation, hardship, and uncertainty, but they're closer than ever to reaching their destination. There's a sense of anticipation in the air. They can't help but imagine what's ahead, the moment they've been waiting for. They've come so far, but now, the real work is about to begin. The closer they get to their target, the more intense the situation becomes. The ship is still facing technical challenges. The final stretch to their destination requires precise navigation, and there's no room for error. The crew is constantly working on adjustments, running simulations, and recalibrating instruments. They can't afford to make a mistake now. Every minor issue could potentially derail everything they've worked for. And yet, in the midst of all the tension, there's a renewed sense of focus. They're no longer just passengers on a journey. They are the ones who will uncover the unknown, who will push humanity's boundaries. It's a heavy burden, but it's also a privilege. The weight of responsibility fuels them, and every small success along the way, no matter how trivial it seems, feels like a victory. They are closer to achieving what no one else on Earth has even dared to dream. Then finally, the moment arrives. They reach the edge of the galaxy, closer to their target than anyone ever thought possible. A new star system lies ahead, one that had been charted, but never truly explored. This system contains planets and moons, some of which could potentially support life. It's what they've been training for, the reason they've spent years on this mission. But as they enter the system, a sense of awe fills the crew. There are no words to describe the feeling of standing on the brink of something so grand, so monumental. The system is unlike anything they expected. It's not just a scientific curiosity, it's a completely new frontier. The planets here, while far different from Earth, show signs that they could potentially host forms of life, even if in ways humans hadn't predicted. The crew is overwhelmed by the discovery. There are so many questions to answer, so many possibilities to explore, but even as they move closer to the planets, there's a growing sense of caution. The crew is well aware that the unknown comes with risks. They need to proceed carefully, methodically. One wrong move, and the entire mission could be at risk. They start their initial observations, sending probes and satellites to analyze the surface of the planets. The data coming in is incredible. Strange atmospheric patterns, unique mineral compositions, and signals that suggest the presence of microbial life. But as they analyze the data further, a chilling realization sets in. There's something more out there than they bargained for. One of the planets, a gas giant, appears to have signs of a complex and ancient structure beneath its clouds. It's a discovery unlike anything they've seen before. Could this be evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence? The crew is stunned by the implications. They've just stumbled upon something that could change the course of human history. The questions pile up quickly. What is this structure? Who or what built it? How old is it? The crew begins to debate their next steps. Do they attempt to land on the planet? Do they try to make contact with whatever might be out there? The uncertainty makes them pause. It's one thing to study distant stars and planets, but to come face to face with evidence of alien civilization, that's something entirely different. There's a mix of excitement, fear, and curiosity that fills the air. They know they're on the verge of a historic breakthrough, but the stakes are higher than they've ever been before. In this moment, the crew faces a dilemma. Do they continue on with the mission as planned, or do they risk everything to investigate this anomaly? The pressure mounts. They consult their mission parameters, but the decision is not an easy one. They've spent years training for this. How could they possibly walk away from a discovery like this? At the same time, they have to weigh the risks. What if the structure is a trap? What if it's dangerous? The crew is split, with some eager to dive deeper and others advocating for caution. But as the tension builds, they make the decision. They will investigate. They prepare the ship for the next phase of their journey, knowing that this could either be the greatest scientific discovery of all time, or a moment they might regret forever. But they've come this far. The unknown is no longer a distant concept. It's right in front of them. As they approach the gas giant, the crew prepares for what could be their greatest challenge yet. Every system is checked, every instrument recalibrated, and the excitement builds to a fever pitch. They're about to step into the unknown, in a way they never imagined possible.